Hello everybody, how are you doing today? I just wanted to make this video to let you guys know that I am an absolutely perfect human being. I don't ever do anything wrong. I don't ever make mistakes in my life. Essentially, I am flawless, and I think that's what I want to share with you guys right now. I'm just kidding, obviously not. The reason why I want to make this video is because kind of going along with the past two videos I've made, there's this thing that I'm constantly thinking about, which is how we all justify our own behaviors, even if those behaviors are bad for us, if they lead to negative consequences for ourselves or other people. We have this bias that we tend to overlook stuff about ourselves, and you know, it's not necessarily the most common thing out there, but people definitely can develop a sort of narcissistic or delusional, I guess, view of themselves, a self-centered idea. Again, that's kind of biased, like I am unable to make any mistakes in life and everything I do is the right thing to do, clearly. And that kind of thinking, I think, is not helpful at all with self-improvement. I think self-improvement, the most important thing is to be honest. You have to be able to recognize in your life, honestly, that you are doing things that are not the most idealistic things in your life, not things that are the best for you. You have to be able to look at your life, reflect, analyze it, and come up with some problems that you see. And obviously then you'd want to work to resolve those problems, but essentially if you lack the ability to be honest and real and see things as they really are, to see those problems that exist, if you're not able to do that, then you're not able to change. And I think that's kind of what the major problem is with this type of thinking, that I don't make mistakes, I don't do anything wrong, I'm perfect, I'm flawless. The problem with that is if you feel like if you're like that, it means that you don't feel like you have to change anything about yourself. And I just think that it's always the best thing to do to try to constantly improve, to constantly try to self-correct all of the things that you're doing in your life that aren't good for you. Which is why in my last video called The Problem with Perfectionism, I talked about how the first thing that you can do at any given point in your life is just sit down, write out a list of things that you are doing right now that you wish you could just stop doing. Write out a list of things that you're not doing but you could easily just start doing soon. And you know, it's like, just get rid of all the negative things in your life at the moment. It's the best thing to do, because our lives aren't perfect right now. There's always things that we can change. Obviously the problem with this is that when you notice that you are imperfect, when you realize the fact that you have flaws, when you notice that there is something wrong that needs to be fixed, an area of self-improvement, that can be, for the lack of a better term, a sobering experience, one where your eyes open, where you see the truth about yourself, that you are not the best. That you're not some special person that you need to, like, it takes yourself off of the pedestal that you sometimes place yourself on as this perfect being, doesn't make mistakes. And this isn't something that necessarily you might relate to the most. In fact, a lot of people watch my videos, including myself, do actually, instead of feeling like everything I do is perfect, sometimes I actually feel like nothing I do is good at all. And it's this it's overlooking the positive and only seeing the negative in life. And that's kind of what I know I go through right now a lot of the times, when I know a lot of people go through. And that is what happens. That can be a problem, because when you start noticing the flaws in yourself, and you start noticing the flaws in the world and the flaws in other people, it can lead you down a path of constantly noticing everything as being a problem. Everything's wrong. Everything is a negative thing. You can always see the negative aspects of everything, everyone, yourself, the world, and it makes you judgmental in some ways. It could possibly, seeing all the negative things going on in your life, seeing how many problems you have, it could make you feel overwhelmed. So it's obviously not a good idea to constantly just point out all your flaws, right? Like that, it can just lead you to having a low self-esteem. It can lead you to feeling like there's no point in trying to change anything in the world, because the world's always going to be a messed up place with so many problems that can't be fixed, and that can lead you to feel hopeless and not try to change. So that is part of the reason why in my last video I did want to point out the fact that you do have power to change things. Like, you do have the ability to see something that's going wrong and to actually actively intervene in your own life or in the world and actually try to make a change, try to improve things. But, you know, if we pretend in our lives and in the world like everything is just okay, like everything is just perfect, nothing wrong with anything, why change anything about ourselves? Why change anything about the world? If we pretend like there's no problems, that's not good either, because it's not being honest. It's a weird thing to think about, right? But here's what I have to say about this. What if you decide that there's no reason to change anything about yourself, there's no reason to try to change anything in the world? What will happen if you continue that line of thinking? What would happen if you don't change anything, if you don't adapt to new problems and new situations? Things can get out of control. And that's why it is necessary to make changes. I think that, like anything, there are two ends of the spectrum in some ways. There's two extremes. On the one hand, you could try to make yourself as perfect as possible, trying to achieve this unobtainable level of perfection, always seeing what's wrong, always pointing out little flaws here and there, finding flaws in everything. You can see what's wrong with anything and be like an extreme critic of yourself and the world and other people. That's one extreme. The other extreme is that you don't see anything wrong at all, and so you don't ever make an attempt at all to change anything. So both of them are obviously extremes. So I just wanted you to think about this and take it into consideration. But again, my way of approaching this is just be honest and try to be as real as possible. So the truth is that, yes, we are all flawed in some ways. We are all imperfect in some ways. But we can't let that idea stop us from trying to improve, trying to work on those flaws and to change. It's just not a good idea to continuously feed this delusion that nothing is wrong. There's ways that it's possible to see everything in a distorted way all the time, and who knows what is the correct or what is the most accurate view of the world or the most accurate perception. To me, it seems like you're always looking at the world in a different way. Sometimes you can look at the world and yourself and see everything good. Sometimes you look at yourself and the world and see everything bad. And it's hard to say that it's wrong to look at the world and see problems, and it's wrong to look at the world and think it's great, perfect, beautiful, wonderful. It's hard to balance all these different ideas, all these different ways of looking at the world, and I know that it's difficult. Gosh, I'm just making this video because I want to just talk about all this. It kind of goes along with the last two videos I've made. The first video, a couple of videos ago, was called justifying your own behavior. You can justify anything that you do, whether it's harmful for yourself, whether it's if it negatively impacts yourself or the world or other people. It's that you can justify everything you do and say what I'm doing is right, even if the evidence suggests that what you're doing is not a good thing to do. But you can psychologically just ignore all the evidence, and so that's part of that applies a lot to what I've just talked about. Also, the other video I made was called The Problem with Perfectionism, and again, perfectionism is when you always see that there's something wrong and you feel like you have to make something perfect, and no matter how perfect you try to make yourself or whatever it is that you're trying to make perfect, you'll always find out that there's always something else that you can do to improve it, to make it more perfect, right? More perfect. And that perfection is not even obtainable. So it's like, how do you deal with all this, you know? Something that I'm trying to talk about a little bit. And here's the thing, when you do find out that there's something wrong with you, when you notice that there's a flaw that you have, or there's something that you're doing that's not the most ideal, whatever it might be, something that we're tempted to do is say that because I have a flaw, because I'm imperfect in some way, that makes me as a whole worthless, and or not perfect as a whole. And that's kind of a problem that we have, because it's kind of like if you imagine a production line creating product after product after product, just repeating the process of production, and then you find a defect in one of the products. It's like sometimes what we do is we see one piece, one aspect that has a defect. So it's like instead of just throwing that one away, we take all of them, all the things, and throw everything away. And sometimes that's what we do for ourselves. Like in our self-esteem, what you might do is realize that there's one thing about you that's not what you want, and all of a sudden you start hating yourself entirely because of one thing. So it's like, yeah, you got to be able to see the positive as well, not just what's wrong. I don't know where I'm going with this. I think I said everything I wanted to say. So thank you everybody for watching and listening to me. If you want to hear me talk about this more, I'm sure I can talk about this topic more and more and more and more videos if you want. It's a lot of mores. So I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you for watching. Be sure to support the channel. Give this video a thumbs up. That helps. Sharing helps even more. And of course, you can see me on my next video or my next live stream. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next time.